YouTubers, we only got another video review for you. This one's from a company called Ardroit, and this here is a lithium iron phosphate battery charger. It is a 12 volt 50 amp, and I've not had any experience with this, never used it, and we're gonna open it up together and look at it, and I'll give you just my thoughts on it. Here's your little manual, and you got an Anderson connector to some battery cables here. I'll look more at this stuff here in just a second. And then you've got an Anderson plug to some ring terminals. And then you've got your power cable. And then you've got your charger. So my first thoughts, it is a metal housing. So that's good. I don't know if it's aluminum or steel. Yep, it's aluminum or some sort of aluminum alloy. And as far as the cable that's coming out of here, it looks pretty thick, and there's like a little strain relief connector right there. All right, so right here on this end, you can see that there is your hole there for your cooling fan. Right there is where your power cord plugs in, and then right here there's a selectable switch right in there, so this thing can run on 110 or 220 volt. And then you've got your on and off switch right in there. It's just a standard toggle switch. Then on this side, power cable comes out, and like I said, you've got a really thick cable there. And then you've got an Anderson connector here on all the different ends. Yeah, these little pulls just make it easier, so you know, if you go to connect these together and you want to disconnect them, you can just pull them apart real easy. Now, I was going through and I was reading some of the reviews on Amazon, and somebody said that these were not like a standard Anderson connector. This is like their own that this company uses that won't fit on like a standard connector. I'm not sure, but you know, if it's not, you could always pull these little pins out right here and put your own Anderson connector on there if it's not a standardized connector. That's just something I read on Amazon. Don't know if it's true or not. I don't have a Anderson connector nearby to test it. Anyways, it seems to be, you know, a solid looking case. You know, like I said, it ain't nothing fancy. It's just plain Jane case. Most of these chargers are pretty much the same way. It just comes in a metal case. You can't really tell that much about it. It says right here on the front, AC input 100 to 120 volts at 60 hertz, 8 amps max, and then also 200 to 240 volts, 60 hertz, 4 amp max. And then it says 12 volt battery type, ternary lithium and lithium iron phosphate. And then it says DC output, red is positive, black is negative, 14.6 volts, 50 amps. And then it says LED indicator, power on, it'll have a green light on. And then charging, it says if it's less than 90%, the red light will flash. If it's above 90%, the green light will flash. And then when it's fully charged, the green light will stay constant on. All right, so I was looking at the wiring. You guys know that I'm a stickler for the wiring, and it's two 8-gauge wires. And I thought it was pretty funny that they've got this heat shrink on here that's white, and it's got like the positive sign and the negative sign that's on the actual heat shrink. If it wasn't already enough that it's red and black, they went ahead and took it a step further with the positive and negative on the heat shrink. It looks like they did a good job crimping them on there. It looks like they're crimped and maybe even soldered. It looks like maybe they've been soldered too. I can't really tell. I'm just looking down the ends of that heat shrink. And as far as the battery clamps here to the Anderson connector, looks like it's the same 8-gauge wire, and the tension on these is pretty good. The insulator, you know, you can peel that back. I don't know if that's going to stay on there. I don't see why it wouldn't unless you rip that, pulling back on it over and over, but it should be fine. Like I said, as far as the clamps goes, they don't perfectly line up. You can see they're just a little offset right there. The jaws are just a little offset, but they seem to suffice. And like I said, the clamping force on both of them is pretty good, so it should stay put. Now I'm going to slide this little insulation cover down off where you can see right in here. You can see that the cable is cramped to the clamp there. But anyways, it all looks pretty solid to me. So next I'm gonna go ahead and get the power cord plugged in right here and get it seated good. And I'm gonna go ahead and get a battery in place. Now keep in mind, this is just for a 12 volt battery. Will not work on 24, 36 volt. It's just a 12 volt charger, and you can only use this for the two types of lithium batteries that I told you, lithium iron phosphate and the Teneri lithium battery. That's what it's got listed right there on the charger. So we went ahead and connected these ring terminals to this 12 volt 230 amp hour battery. We're gonna go ahead and charge this one up. Now the one thing that I do like about this particular battery is it's got a button here on the side where you can turn it on and off, and also we can monitor it with the app that I've got on just an old phone that I no longer use. I just keep the app on there so I can monitor the battery state of charge and all that. So anyways, I went ahead and plugged this up, and it's got power. I just don't have it plugged into here yet, and just with it plugged up, it shows that it's got a green light on there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and plug the Anderson connector in there. And the good thing about these is they're dummy proof. You can't plug them in the wrong way. And now it's that easy. You still, it's got the green light because I've not turned the button on. And now it should take it a second, and yep, it did. It instantly recognized it, and now it's flashing red. So it says, scared me there for just a second. That fan kicked on. I knew it was going to, but I just wasn't ready for it. Flashing red, it's at 90% or less. So it's gonna start charging, and we're just gonna monitor it and see how it goes. You can see right now, it's about 74 degrees. All right, guys, so we went ahead and charged this battery up, and I gotta say the cables didn't get even, just a barely warm. It's not like they got hot or anything where you couldn't touch them. And, it did charge it up to 100% state of charge. And it didn't take long to do it either. With that 50 amps, it really puts a lot of power into there, and it's able to charge a battery pretty quick. So that is very nice. Now, one thing to remember, let's say you've got a battery that is really dead, where the BMS has just shut down and you need something to wake it up. This charger has a system built into it where it'll wake that BMS up and go ahead and start charging it. So that's pretty cool. Now, one thing that I wanted to make mention of is, whenever you mount this, you want to mount it in a horizontal position. You don't want to mount it vertical because it doesn't cool as good. And so now there's one thing that I noticed, when this thing was charging the battery, is the cooling fan. This thing really puts out a hell of a lot of air. I mean, literally, you can feel that thing from across the room blowing out that air. Now, it's not silent. You can definitely hear that fan blowing the air. It's moving a lot of air through there. So that is good that it's able to keep it cool. Now, like I said, the case did get warm, but it wasn't dangerous or anything like that. But would I leave the house with this thing plugged up unattended? No. You hear people on Amazon talking about how the cables get warm, and I did experience warmth, but not hot and not dangerous hot. But like again, I would not leave this unattended, because if, let's say the cooling fan did quit, then you might have a fire on your hands. So make sure that you're always near this to where you can pay attention to it and not just leave it. But anyways, another thing, when you go to mount it, you can see here on the bottom that it's got these little screw hole cutouts. There's 4 of them, 2 on each side. Now, one thing that I would like to have seen them improve on was right here, the mounting legs. They should have made like a little drop down area for the mounting legs, so this is not sitting on any kind of surface and remaining hot. So if you do mount this on like a board or something like that, you could always use like some spacers or something underneath it to raise it up off of whatever you're mounting it to, and that way it'll run a little bit cooler. Now, one thing that I want to make mention of is you've got two different options here. You can use these battery clamps, or you can use the ring terminals. Me personally, I like the ring terminals better, just simply because you're probably going to get a little bit more heat with the battery clamps, just because you're not going to make as solid of a connection with putting a clamp on there. Whenever you put a ring terminal on there, that bolt, that M8 bolt and flat washer is touching that whole thick terminal there. And so to me, that is the most solid connection possible, versus you've got this here is just touching just a little bit of that round bolt, and you're going to have a lot of heat build up from those clamps. That might be where some people are talking on Amazon about the cables gets a little warm. If that's the case, switch to the ring terminals and be done with it. I like these much better. Probably would rarely use these unless I was just in a pinch and wanted to top it off real quick, or I was going to be nearby where I could watch these and pay attention and make sure that they didn't get too hot, and I would really pay attention and make sure that they're getting a really good connection. So that's just my 2 cents. All right, guys, so I just wanted to show you the charger kicked on, and it's at 49.54 amps. So pretty much we're just going to call it 50 amps. And I ran it down just a little bit so you can see that it's charging it. And you can see right there on that app, it's still doing basically the 50 amps. And so it's fixing to top the battery off. And I mean, it's close. You can see right there, it's at 99% state of charge. And one thing that I will make mention of is, like I said before, that fan does move a lot of freaking air, and it is noisy, but I'm not going to hold that against this, just simply because I would rather have a fan that's moving a lot of air, that's a little bit noisy where I could hear it, than having a silent fan and not moving much air. I'm just saying, if you have one of those fans that turn less RPMs and it quit working, you might not hear it. Where this one here is moving and spinning really fast, but it's also moving a lot of air, so you're going to know if this thing turns off. And so that's one thing I can always say. I can tell when this thing reaches 100% state of charge, it'll cut itself off, and you'll instantly look over at it, because it does. There you go. So it reached its 100% state of charge, and you can see it's no longer charging. Now it'll probably kick on and off maybe another time or two over the next, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, just to top it off, and then it'll be good. But like I was saying, I would rather have a noisier fan and have a cool machine. When I was charging this, when it was at a lower state of charge, this unit here, the main body of the unit, did get warm. The cabling, not so much. But like I said, I used the ring terminals, and it got up to about, it kicked on again. But like I was saying, you can see right there, 49.43 amps. It'll keep on charging, topping it off. See, it turned off again. But like I was saying before, it got up to about 120, in the low 120s on the sides and the top, and even the bottom. I checked it. So like I said in the very beginning, if it was me and I was going to mount this, I would definitely take maybe some metal spacers and stick up underneath the bottom and raise it up at least an inch, and that way it's going to not trap that heat in on up underneath. So is this a good battery charger? I think that as long as you pay attention to these clamps, these battery clamps, and make sure you got a good connection, then you'll be fine. If you're experiencing some heat, more so than what you would like, I would definitely go back and check your connection and then reassess. So I would be careful when you're connecting these. Make sure that they're really good connection. With the ring terminals, it's less of a chance that they're going to build as much heat. So for me, that's a safe bet. And then also, like I said, I'll say it again, the unit here, make sure if you're mounting it to something, you know, make sure you put some sort of spacer up underneath there. It doesn't say that in the manual. I mean, to me, it's just kind of common sense. I wish they would have made, you know, maybe in the future, maybe they could make like a little drop leg down so it'll raise it up higher and give more airflow. That's just my 2 cents. You know, if I might consider mounting it to a board or something and putting some spacers on there. I think that would be one way to drop the temperatures down. Now, did it get dangerously hot? No, it did not. But I would like to see, you know, things cool as possible, just for my own sake. Now, would I leave this running and go to the grocery store? No, obviously not. Just like I wouldn't leave a kerosene heater running unattended, the same as I wouldn't leave a battery charger like this unattended. Make sure you're around it and, you know, monitor it, make sure it's not getting too hot. But it seems like a pretty good charger. Now, I will say it will cut your charging time way down, and keep in mind you can only use a 50 amp charger if your battery will allow it. So check in your specifications and see if your battery can handle a 50 amp charger. Now, it's easy if you want to go to, well, prime example, the LiFePO4 website. You can look at their spec sheet right here, and it says charge performance, recommended charging current, 50 amps. So, you know, you could charge this with a 10 amp battery charger, but it's going to take a long time. Where, you know, if you charge it with a 50 amp, it's really going to cut your time down. So that's why, you know, a lot of power, you know, it gets in these cables and it does get warm. So it's going to get a lot warmer than probably a 10 amp charger would. So anyways, is it a good charger? Yeah. Do I recommend it? Yes. If you don't want to sit there for a long time waiting on the charger, then definitely I would recommend it. I would definitely space it, though. If it was me, I just think that's cheap insurance to make it run cooler. And, you know, if you wanted to, you could even take and have a fan, like one of those little computer fans up underneath it, you know, and blowing on the bottom of the case. But other than that, seems like a good battery charger. Now, just keep in mind, it's for 12 volt. Anyways, I appreciate you guys watching this video. I hope it was informative to you. And if you ain't got one of these Ardroit chargers, I'll put a link for it down in the description. I am Amazon affiliate, so if you do buy it from my link below, it won't cost you any more, and it might give me $1 or something to help my channel along. Every little bit helps. And then also, if you're interested in the LiFePO4 battery, I mean, it's a really nice battery, and I do recommend it. I love the fact that it's in a metal case. It kind of reminds me of like the SOKs. And then I love it that it's got that power switch right there on the side. You can turn it on and off, and it's just built really good. You know, these terminals are I love the way that they've put those there on the top, and they bolt in. So yeah, seems like a good battery. I use it to run an air conditioner in the summertime. So yeah, it's just an all-around good battery. Plus it's got some hand grips on the side, so it makes it a little bit easier to pick up. And like I said, that's a metal case. And so it's you know, a lot cheaper than those SOKs. So I'll put a link for it down below as well. And you know, I'll try to find some spacers, you know, some spacers that might fit up underneath there that would work. And if I can, I'll link them in the description as well. So anyways, I appreciate you watching. I'm sorry this was a little bit long and drawn out, but I just wanted to give you a good review. And you know, I left a lot of it out just because I didn't want to have to edit an hour-long video of, you know, monitoring this thing with an infrared gun and all that, just to monitor temperatures and charging and all that. I don't want to make a long boring video. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Till next time, see ya.